Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Lens. I'm here with a special guest co-host tonight, Mr. Steve Dills. Steve, how have you been?
Still vertical.
That's good. That's good.
So, that counts, I feel like, for most things.
Yeah. Last time you were here, we talked about Skinwalker Ranch, which I see they're starting new episodes on whichever channel that
Soon.
is. So
Yes.
I'm
I
excited about that.
cannot wait to grab those off of my favorite uh God pirating website. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But this time we're here to talk about something else that's, I think, more near and dear to your heart. The Hanover Tavern.
Yes. Oh, Thomas, damn it, Thomas. Thomas is first. Mm.
Uh,
Son of a bitch.
so
Hi, Thomas. Yeah. So tonight we're gonna talk about Hanover Tavern. Obviously, as always, if you guys want to derail us completely, I am a okay with that. Um, that's always a fun thing for me.
Mhm.
Um, and then we also have someone else with us tonight. Do you want to introduce him? Do you want me to introduce him? What do you? How do you want
I'll
to do
I'll
this?
let you introduce him because I don't.
Okay.
You know him better than me.
All
So
right. So he is my counterpart weirdo. We are on the Ghost Finders together. Um, I'm we both do a lot behind the camera. Chris arguably does more behind the camera. He does a lot of the videoing alongside Heather and Rob, um, and Nathan. He also does a lot of the drone work, and occasionally is the gopher because he goes for this and goes for that. Um, and he's also the co-host of one of my personal favorite YouTube series, Eerie Encounters or Eerie Enchounters, depending on how you want to call it. And both Chris and I, oh, I just dropped it. Okay, Chris and I uh, are co-hosts of that. Yeah, so I'm bringing Chris. Yay! It's
hey, Chris, welcome
Chris.
to the show.
What's going on, guys?
Chris is floating in the air tonight.
Yeah, I'm just hovering over at Ashland. Might change it. You never know.
So,
You might see
well,
him.
I'm glad to have both of you on tonight. I appreciate you making the time to come on. Um, Jamie Widener is our normal co-host, my normal co-host, and he is on assignment this week. Next week he's doing an episode on the Haunted Mansion in Disney World.
God, I
Well,
love it.
this week he is he's doing research. So
That is my favorite of rides in the whole wide world
so
ever.
so tune in next week, Steve, to catch
I
his
I
story
will.
about it.
That's not a background, Thomas. That's for real. That's for Chris is actually there right now.
Yeah, IRL right now.
Right meow. And the other thing is people in Ashland like to drive on the train tracks and get their cars stuck on the tracks. So if we're lucky, maybe we'll get to see that. But no, actually, if you go and like search virtual rail fan and if you look for Ashland, you'll always see cars on the tracks. People don't know how to drive in town here.
No,
It
it's
is
awful,
the
and it's
What do you
not.
mean it's awful? It's the best. I love it.
Well, I mean, like, yeah, from like a viewing standpoint, it is.
Yeah, it's great content.
But then, if you're actually like have to deal with it and deal with the traffic, it sucks because
Well, I never drive through
how are
Ashland
you
anymore.
how are you that dumb? How are you that dumb to just be like, oh, there's a train track?
Let's drive on them.
Well, that's what they're for, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they are. They're for travel.
man, I've seen CSX trucks drive on them things. I bet.
Uh,
That's true. This is true. I mean, I don't know. I love it. I find such sweet humor in the fact that people maroon their cars on the tracks all the time. So I don't know.
hmm.
I don't see an issue with it. The emergency responders and the train company probably does, but
They,
I don't.
they get fined, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're fine. Oh my
Hey,
gosh,
Deb,
look, it's
thanks.
the Covies. Hi
Yep.
Deb, hi John,
Our Bigfoot brothers and sisters,
our big feet
our big
friends,
feets, our Sasquatches.
Sasquatches.
Ashland is nice, Thomas. It is actually a very nice town.
So
Yeah.
talking about Sasquatches, I'm assuming that both you guys are going to be up at the bash this year. Is that correct?
I will be.
I wouldn't be close, but I will actually be in DC. I'm gonna
Okay.
go see Pierce the Veil and Blink-182 in concert. So
Okay.
I'm trying to convince him to come the day before and still make it to the bash and then just crash in the hotel room. But we'll see. I got to peer pressure him a little bit more.
that's not gonna happen.
Lots of peer pressure. Mark, how's it going, man? I miss you. My room is red. That is the blood of my enemies. No, I'm just kidding. It is red lighting because why not make it all red?
If you
I
ambience is
don't know
always
if we
good, right?
met. I'm not sure if we met. It really articulates my clothes hanger right here.
I was just about to say that, like, when Steve tries to work out, it's he keeps the red light on. It
Yeah.
makes him more seductive and sexy when he's like sweating his ass off.
When we go to the gym, I'm like, please, red lights only.
It's like, Planet Fitness, lights
Red
please.
lights, please. Oh God, I don't know, Debbie. I don't think we're gonna have Fast and Reviews this year. I'm sad. I'm sad. I don't know. I'm telling
It's
you, if everybody messages Chris and peer pressures him, then maybe we can get him to come like Sunday or Friday or something. I don't know.
Listen, I already had the campground booked and everything, and then I talked to my girlfriend. I was like, "Hey, when is this concert again?" And she told me. I was like, "Well, not going to the bash."
I don't know what that is, what Debbie sent, but it's probably disapproval.
I think that's what that is.
If I were to guess. If I were to
So,
guess.
Steve, just
well,
get a cardboard cutout of me and just carry me around.
Just throw you at people.
Yeah, just huck me.
I could do that. I could do that. We could do that. What if I get a printout of your face, cut some holes for eyes, and like cut your mouth out, and
and
then
then
have someone else do it? Like I could get John if it's before his bedtime, I could get Kobe to do it.
You just got to keep it weird.
Like, but it's got to be before his bedtime.
yep.
So
Oh
I
my.
have to work on that one. But
So, well, we have already rabbit holed, I can tell. But do you want to jump into Hanover Tavern a little bit?
yes, give me let's keep talking for a second. I'm trying to share this on my
Oh,
pages.
sure. Yep.
I'm getting derailed from the derail right now. And this is the problem.
See, it all like pulled back. You know, that's the whole reason why I put the Ashland train tracks up, because everything's gonna derail. Like,
Just like the train.
There you
yeah,
go.
Did you do that on purpose? Is that
yeah,
like a purposeful?
yeah, totally. It's not because my room's a disaster.
No. But I mean, did you pick the Ashland like the train because you knew that it was going to be derailed?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
it was
I
just what I
I
could.
was giving him credit, Steve.
I don't
So
know.
what have you been up to, Chad? Though you
Uh,
did Boobies Brewery.
Yep. We've been doing Boobies Brewer. We've got one coming up this weekend.
That is a lot of boobies.
Yeah. It's we were doing twice a month there with public investigations. We've dropped down to once a month. Um, and we're selling out, which is always good. We have one ticket left for this week.
Ooh.
And we're getting some interesting stuff. I was with Chris Mendez and some of his guys, and we went to the Clifton Five in the beginning of February.
I want to
Uh,
go there.
it's a great space. It's probably 2 hours from Gettysburg or so. So
I had some friends that were part of a team from there, and I'm like, "Ugh, I want to go because I hear some really cool things about it.
yeah. I was up there. Chris was there, and Scotty the Medium was there. Do you know Scotty?
Mm-hmm.
And a couple other guys, and it was a great experience. We did 2 nights. We were there till like 4 o'clock in the morning both nights.
Oh my
Did some
god.
filming. So stay tuned. We've got something coming out in probably about a month and a half. So that'll be fun.
It's a good
Um,
turnaround time.
mhm.
When we film for Eerie Encounters, God, I have things from like a year ago at this point. Just coming from New York from the eclipse. Oh my God, that's awesome! So you went and you got to see the total eclipse of the heart. That's
Total
cool.
to my
Yeah.
heart.
Total
The
Yeah,
eclipse
girl.
of
Todd
the
and
heart.
Carmela. And he just mentioned we have an event at Red Mill Museum on May 11th with I can't believe Daryl Marston is going
Okay.
to be there at that, and Ron and Lourdes will be there at that.
Oh, I
Um,
love Ron and Lourdes.
yeah, they're great. Any event that I can do with them, I try to get there. So
That's cool.
so yeah, that's what I got going on. I'm going. Have you been to White? I think I asked you this last time. Have you ever been to White Hill Mansion in New Jersey?
Not yet.
Okay, it's
It is on the list.
okay. That's another great one. I'm going there the first weekend of May, May
Up
4th. May the
in
4th be
dirty
with you.
Jersey.
Hmm.
Old Doity Joyzy.
So, so yeah, I got some stuff coming up. I'm looking forward to a great season. So,
That'll be fun. Yeah, we're just
mhm.
dealing with pollen right now. Just tons of yellow, so that's always good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's good for the lungs.
I'm getting over a sinus infection because of pollen. So
Yeah, man. Why not?
it's been so great.
Yeah, they did before me, which is lame. I feel like we should have done nothing until I joined the Ghost Finders.
It was BS.
And then yeah, it was BS before Steve. Um and once I joined, then we should have we should do everything now. So
I think yeah, and yeah, my friend Bert was with us last time we went to White Hill, and his wife had something going on. So they're going with us this time. It's going to be a great experience. So
awesome. Well, that'll be
first
fun.
time I was there, we had a picture fall off the wall.
And
So
hopefully you didn't have to replace it.
we did not,
That's good.
and of course it was just off camera when it fell.
It's
A-
that's how it works, man.
As these things happen, yep.
That
So
is how it works.
so,
So
but
and
yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
that reminds me of like the very first time we investigated the tavern. Um, we we were going through and investigating, and there was this one room that was locked up because it was an exhibit room for um, Civil War artifacts. And
Hmm.
we're investigating, and all of a sudden we hear all of this crashing, like glass and everything, like all this stuff hitting the floor. And I'm like in the midst of shitting bricks because I'm like, oh my god, there goes my life savings. I'm gonna have to cover whatever's happening in there. The door was locked. The room was locked. You couldn't get in there. And the um Austin, the guy that was with us at the time from the foundation, didn't have a key into the room. So we're like, oh man, we can't even get in there to like assess damage and see what's going on.
Right,
And so we texted our executive director Dave, and we're like, hey, listen, this happened. We're not in the room at all, so please don't sue us. And
right.
so he gets in the next morning and opens the door and checks, and there's everything's in its place. There is nothing. He checked the cameras that they had, and they had DVR cameras with no
Hmm.
audio, of course, but the video showed absolutely nothing. And I'm like, thank God. But that was scary because I saw my financial life flash before my
But
eyes.
yeah,
Hi, Kristen. Yeah, so I guess let's talk about the tavern. Let's talk about the
yeah.
tavern. So we're not here for 2 hours this time. Just here for one. So Chris, do you want to start? We'll start as if we're outside of the tavern. What do you want me to start?
I mean, I can start it. I don't have specific dates, so I'm gonna give you like the range.
Okay, I can specific date you.
All right, cool. Because I don't
I'll
have.
date you, Chris.
Aw, you gonna court me?
I mean, there is a courthouse.
It is the oldest one too.
Hi, Lynn. How are you? All right,
So,
kick us off.
so
Welcome,
welcome to the Hanover Tavern.
welcome.
What you are seeing now is actually the back of the building. It faces 301, which is a drag strip, which is actually supposed to be 35 miles an hour, but that no one ever goes there. Um, with this picture, from the left, where those steps are, like in the center, everything to the left is from the 1790s. And then from the steps over to the right was built in the 1820s. It was two separate buildings. The old tavern, like I said, was on the left. The new tavern, or the no, excuse me, I have that. Do I have that backwards?
Everything on the right hand side of the picture, where the flag is, and we have another shot that'll kind of show you from an aerial perspective. Go to the next slide, one more. There you go. That's probably a better view for you, Chris.
Yeah,
The top right photo between those two first chimney stacks is the old home, which was built in
yeah,
1791.
yeah. And then on the left, between the two chimney stacks on the left hand side, was built in the 1820s. In 1830, I believe, it was connected with a breezeway, making it one whole building.
Mm-hmm. Um,
Very cool.
yeah. So go back one slide if you don't mind.
Hmm.
So the tavern is part of a bigger kind of county complex, if you will. It is one of the oldest operating taverns, one of the oldest surviving and operating taverns in America. It actually originally dates back to 1733, and the original building is not here. It's not on the picture. It's no longer with us, unfortunately. Rest in peace. But the original tavern dates back to 1733, and it was a one-story, smaller structure, where the tavern owners and any guests, any of those sort of folks would have stayed. So you would have been there with all of your favorite friends. Um, Eventually, they decided that they were going to, first move out. So they built their home portion, which we just talked about, in 1791. So you've got a 60-year gap, right? 60 years where these folks are sharing their home with people. Um, and then they finish that 1791. They move into the old home or to the new home. They used the original tavern for a little bit longer, and then in the 1820s, 1821, 1822, somewhere around there, they build. Hi, Kyle. How are you? They build the quote unquote new tavern. The original tavern did not burn down. It did not get destroyed or blown up or set ablaze or anything like that. Um, we just believe that the original tavern was about 100 years old. It was getting pretty
Brand.
dilapidated, and so it was time to build a new tavern. And so they built a much larger tavern. You can see where it's 2 stories, um, and it's a lot bigger. And they were able to kind of separate um, the family from tavern goers. Um, what I was saying about the county complex is you will typically in a typical county complex for this time period you will find 4 buildings. You will find a courthouse, which is on the left hand side of this picture. You will find a jail, which is kind of also on the left hand side, but just a little bit further to the top, and that's
It's
a stone jail. Yeah, it's a small square thing. There's also going to be a clerk of courts building, which is not in the picture, but it is just, I guess, uh, just below where you'd see the courthouse, um, and finally the tavern. So 4 buildings. Typically, it would be encased in some sort of fence. Hi, Stacy. How are you, Stacy? It would be encased in some sort of fence. In this case, it was brick, and so this was all surrounded by brick at one point in time. But like Chris said, we're actually looking at the back of the tavern. The original portion or the original tavern was actually facing the road, and the road was on the other side of the building. So the original Stagecoach Road actually ran around the building on the other side, um, and don't really know why, but when they came through and paved everything and rebranded it to 301, they decided, you know what? Screw your backyard. We're going to put a road in it. And so that's why technically what you see today is the back of Hanover Tavern. And when you drive on 301, you are driving through our backyard. Um, and so that's kind of how the building is laid out. It's a very weird kind of layout. Um, I guess, do you want to? You can move to the next slide or back slide. It doesn't really matter. So the tavern has seen a lot of history, right? The original building dating back to 1733. This building dating the earliest back to 1791. It has seen its fair share of history. We have everybody from, um, gosh, Marquis de Lafayette, Rochambeau, all the way through to
Edgar Allan Poe.
Poe, P.T. Barnum, Patrick Henry, which is a personal favorite of mine.
Mhm.
Um,
Is the cupboard still not cupboard? Is the
is
The
Patrick?
lawyer.
Yes, it is still there. Yep.
okay?
Yep,
I
yep,
think
yep.
that's
That's still on display. So we actually have an exhibit right now going on, and we have a video that we'll show you guys a little bit later of some of the activity that has never been released publicly. So you guys will see a very very new. What doing? Yeah, we got to do the O face for YouTube. Um, that's your picture right there. Um, but that's like ah god, like all the paranormal YouTube channels, all they all have the O face on every
They have,
single one.
it actually has
uh-huh.
a name.
Huh?
It actually has a name. Like they call it something.
I
Like,
call it the O face.
since all the YouTubers use it,
I just call it the O face. I don't know.
So yeah,
But
like Stacy said, there's so much history there.
there is, and that's the coolest thing about it. It has so many people that have graced its halls. George Washington has been there
it's
twice.
called soy face, by the way.
It's called what?
Soy face.
What?
Soy, SOY.
Soy.
Soy
SOY.
face.
Like soy sauce.
Yes, like soy sauce and face. It's called soy face.
Who knows why?
I'm gonna need you to dig and get us an answer on to why that's called a soy face, Chris.
Listen, I'm on Reddit, so I can get far.
All right, you keep digging. I'm gonna talk, and at the end, I need you to do a presentation on soy face. Hi, Michael. How are you? See, look, we are railroading this. We're railroading the our own presentation here. Hi, Pam. Pam's on our team.
Okay.
So yeah, so the tavern has seen a lot of people, a lot of activity. Um, gosh, you name it, the tavern has seen it. You can go to the next slide. So this is actually I included this because this is the earliest known picture of Hanover Tavern that we have.
Oh wow.
We
That's
don't have anything earlier. I don't even know the date on this picture, but this is our earliest known photo. Um, I love this because it's really, to me, it's really neat because it's got horse and buggies. So it's definitely not from today. You can see that the tavern was, granted, it's kind of sepia toned, but it was a different color than it is today.
mm-hmm.
And you can see, some of the things like the benches are risers all the way across the back. Somewhere in this picture, I've seen it. There is a place to hook up your horse, which is no longer there. Uh, we have those two massive trees that are no longer there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
No stop
and
sign.
Nope, no stop sign. I'm not sure those horse and buggies could get over 35 miles an hour, but they probably, if they could have, then they could have sped through here too. Probably did. They probably did that on purpose. I like
Yeah.
um, but it's a cool photo nonetheless,
It is,
and
yeah.
and something that we always like to share. I wish, like, unfortunately, because of the way that the tavern has kind of passed down from person to person over the years. By the time that we purchased the building in 1990, there was nothing in it that was original. And so I'll step back a little bit and kind of share a little bit about that. The tavern is owned by the Hanover Tavern Foundation. Um, I am I'm the immediate past president, so the president of the foundation the last 3 or so years. But the foundation owns and operates the tavern. We purchased the building in 1990. And really, our mission is to make it a center for the community. We do that through a number of ways. First off, being events. We do
Mhm.
public events, private events, all those sorts of things. We also utilize a portion of the building as a sort of a living history museum in a way, in a sense. Um, I like to consider it immersive because some of the rooms that you get to go into, that Chad you've been into,
Hmm.
you can actually step into that time period. So one of my favorite rooms is um, our cage bar, and that room I don't have any pictures of it, but I would urge you guys to come and join us so you can check it out in person.
Hmm.
But our cage bar is renovated to be reminiscent of the 1830s and what a tavern would have been at that time period. Thomas has Thomas has been in the tavern twice. He needs to come more. He just needs to move down here, Thomas.
Yeah.
Um, and so we try to recreate those rooms in such a way that you literally step back into history. Um, we also have a whole slew of other things that we do at the tavern that I'll kind of share with you guys here in a second. Um, yeah, dude, you should come join us. Come hang out with us, Kyle.
Kyle,
Um,
it's definitely worth a trip. I love it.
it's fun and the whole kit and caboodle. Um, I mean, we'll talk about the activity here in a little bit, but we've got a slew of it. Uh, so we purchased the building in 1990. We spent a couple $1 million immediately to make it safe for folks to re-enter the building, and then we opened our doors, and we've been operating ever since. If you want to go to the next slide, sir.
Hmm.
So, just because I'm all over the place, this is one of the first drawings of the layout of the tavern. Chris, I don't know if you've even seen this.
I've never seen this picture.
This is actually from an insurance document.
Oh, Geico.
So it was Geico back in the day. We had the gecko. Actually, if you scroll out from this picture, you see a little gecko symbol on it. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, you need to come hang out. Come on down. But this is one of the original drawings. It was done up as part of their insurance coverage. And you can see where the original, or not, the original, but a wooden tavern, quote unquote.
Hmm.
And you can even see kind of the dimensions it talks about. You can see that there is um, a number of outhouses and outbuildings. There was a stable, which is marked as E, at one point that was there. Um, there's a private home, which is marked, I think that's a C over on the other side of the street. There was a barn. There was a butcher. I mean, there were tons of buildings that
Hmm.
that were all, part of the tavern complex.
Yeah.
Um,
Is this a Sanford insurance map? Because I know we have those up here, and
I
there's
don't
so much history that you can pull from those.
I don't remember what the insurance
Okay.
company or mapping or anything was. I found this at one point and I stole it and I'm like, this is
Hmm.
mine now. Like not the original documentation, just the picture.
Right. Right.
The
He
original documentation, I don't know where that is.
he national treasured it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I actually found this on the back of the Constitution.
he used lemon juice and
A black light.
a hair dryer. It was a hair dryer.
Oh, was it a hair dryer?
Juice and a hair dryer, heat it up. And they would find the codes to whatever the hell it was.
The Hanover Tavern.
Yeah, yeah. It was just a Google map of the Hanover Tavern. I didn't Google it.
It had a QR code on it too that took us to the website. So
With a
very
with,
weird.
with a little 10% off for the restaurant.
Well,
Yes,
speaking of the
exactly
restaurant,
that.
I know I'm jumping around, but it is some of the best food that I've had.
No, no, no. Go to the next slide. You're on track.
Okay.
So, uh, yeah. So we do. So one of the cool things about the tavern is not a lot of people realize that we are a multi kind of faceted facility. Not only do we have the building and we focus on the history and trying to share the history and educate the community, but we also do a number of other things. First off, we have a oh, thank you. I'll pass it on to the man that makes some of that stuff. Chris, Stacy
That's not
said that
me.
you guys have the best cheese grits.
Thanks. I will tell Joe.
Okay, you tell Joe. You let Joe know. So Chris will occasionally go and work at the tavern in the kitchen. So
I don't know.
I do too. We all kind of chip in.
Okay.
But we all go and help out. But at gosh, it's April now. So at the every March we bring in somewhere between 2 to 3,000 school age kids, and we teach them about a number of different historical topics. And so that's that top left picture for you guys that's on there. And basically we will walk them through Rev War, Civil War, Virginia history, U.S. history. They'll learn a little bit about what it would have been like to be a Civil War soldier. What you would have ate and how you would have dressed and acted and all these sorts of things. Right now, that's actually it's hard to see to make out the face, but that's our executive director David Deal in the back there in front of all of the children,
Yeah,
and
wearing the
he is,
shirt, sitting down.
huh?
He's the one in the back wearing the red shirt, sitting down.
Well, that's towards the front of the picture. I'm talking
Yeah,
about the back of it,
yeah,
like
but
all
he's
the way.
in the back. Yeah, he's in the back with the children, sitting down,
Yep,
wearing the red shirt. Steven.
that's him. That's exactly him. Not the dude dressed up.
Exactly.
Totally, totally not the guy dressed up. Uh, but the only standing person in this picture is our executive director David Deal,
It's very
and
entertaining.
he is dressed up as Mr. Tillman, and the Tillmans owned and operated the tavern around the Rev War, and so he's kind of sharing a little bit of insight about that. We also share history from Martha Ann Fields and her son George Washington Fields,
Mm.
who were enslaved there on the property, and they share their perspective of what it was like living in Virginia, living in one of the southern states during slavery. And they also talk about how they escaped and what it took. And it is one of the most passionate and enthralling presentations that I've ever seen. I've watched it a few times, and every time I there could be a fire going on behind me, and I will sit there and listen to them talk about this
No.
because I don't know, like it is something. They're some of the best storytellers, and it is such a story to just overcome and beat all of the odds for Martha Ann and her
Mm.
family to literally, you know, Martha Ann was a cook here at the tavern during the prior to and during the Civil War, and when the Union Army came through, they basically said, "Hey, if anybody here wants to leave, you need to follow us." And so the middle of the night, she grabbed all of her kids and literally left.
Wow.
And talks about the trials and tribulations not only of slavery but also of how they literally had to make that trip and journey to freedom. So it is a really really passionate and really really interesting um, presentation. Um, they also learn about um, Margaret White, and she was a refugee during the Civil War there at the tavern, and so she shares about how her sons and daughters and all these sorts of folks went off to war and this whole thing, and learned about the death of her sons there at the tavern, and talks about the fires and everything going on, and it is a really really interesting perspective into kind of what a commoner, if you will, would have experienced during the war. We always hear the perspective of, the generals and all these sorts of things,
Hmm.
but this is a person just experiencing it and having to live through it. And so it's really really interesting stuff. And so that is just one of the facets of what we do.
Right. How
Um,
long do the kids like? How long do the students spend? Is it a day, like a whole
They'll do
day?
a half day,
Okay.
and that may be subject to change, but they do a half day, so they'll come and spend a couple of hours and move, not just through the tavern, but they'll go from the tavern to the courthouse, and they'll meet Patrick Henry over there. The fun fact: the courthouse that is on the property is the original courthouse. It is the third oldest courthouse, continuously operating courthouse in America. And it is at that courthouse that Patrick Henry argued the Parsons Cause. Chad, do you
Right.
remember what Parsons Cause is?
I know we talked about it last time I was there, but no,
You
I
got to
don't.
remember back to fourth grade, Chad.
That's a long time ago, Steve.
Taxation without representation.
Okay.
And so the colonists had a very bad year of growing crop. There was a drought. And so they were still being charged the same amount of taxes with no representation across in Britain. And so in Parliament. And so uh, there was this whole slew of court cases that were set up. Patrick's just so happened to be the first, and it was a domino effect, essentially. All of the cases after Patrick's, because of how passionately he argued this case and how well he did, uh, they pretty much copy and pasted the same thing all the way up and down the coast, which ultimately was one of the sparks of the American Revolution.
Hmm.
So it was a huge deal, right? There is a lot going on here. One of the other things that we have on the right hand side is a full theater. We can sit 155 people, um, and we have plays all throughout the year. Um, we had, I guess, just one just wrapped up, I think, Chris, or just
Yeah,
I don't
it
know.
wrapped up last week.
And so we've got 3 or 4 plays. Um, Chris, do you want to talk about Barksdale Theater and that whole timeline? Do you want me to?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, all you. Take it out. Take it over, Chris.
So the Barksdale Theater, it was a theater troupe that came down from New York. It consisted of 6 or 7 individuals, I believe, and they brought down their entire family, their big dogs, like everything, and they stumbled across the tavern. Picked it up in the early 1950s, 1953, and decided that they wanted to make a theater. And now back then, it wasn't a non-segregated theater because they they were never segregated. They decided that whoever wanted to be there was allowed to be there, whether their color of their skin, it doesn't matter. They were there to enjoy some food and watch a play. And on their opening night, they had so much backlash that the Hanover County police told them, if you open up, we are going to shut you down. And to combat that, they sent them tickets to the opening show. So they were like, "Yeah,
Like, come on, free tickets.
go ahead, try." And so over the years, they lived here. They established a community, which is now called the Virginia Repertory Theater, which Steve said still holds plays there, about
Hmm.
4 a year. And yeah, I mean it's just super cool. They took the basement of the tavern and dug it out so that they could fit more seating, so that you had more people that were able to come in and enjoy the play. And it was what they ran all the way up to what, the 1980s, right?
Just about. Yeah, they there was a few different uses over the years for the tavern. It was, a theater. It was a boarding house. It was apartments, a boutique hotel. I mean, there are so many different facets of this
Yeah, it
building.
just everything that you can think of just like dropped down into the tavern. And
The
like,
Hmm.
tavern was a post office.
yep. I mean, it's just, I don't know, when you go in there and you look around, it's so hard to like try to piece together what it would look like. Usually you
Right.
can go to an old place and like really know, like, oh yeah, like this is where this was done, this is where that was done. But when you walk into the tavern, you have no idea. Like when you're walking up the steps to go to what I call the second floor, Steve calls the first floor. Um, you walk up the steps, you literally are looking at a doorway. Like that wasn't, and then right beside is a window. And you over the years, or your time there, you learn that some of these doors that you're walking through are original doorways, some of them aren't. Like it took me forever to really understand um how people got into the tavern for the longest time, because they were like, yeah, like there was a porch here, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, they would enter there, and I'm like, where? Where? Why are you walking so far upstairs to
Well,
get to
and
the tavern?
And that's where the one restaurant is right now. The one seating area for the restaurant used to be the front porch, correct? Do I have
Yes.
that wrong? Okay.
No,
Yes.
that is now, yeah, that is now, the veranda is now part of the seating where you would, yeah, walk up, and that would be the front porch. And then if you're
Mhm.
looking at the face of the tavern onto the right, you'll see like two long, look like window shutters. Behind that, that is the original, one of the original doors to walk into the tavern portion of the home, or I should say not the home, but the tavern itself.
Hmm.
So
Lots
it's
of
kind
lots
of,
of doors.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of doors and there's an archway. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
What else do you want? There's an archway. It's a bunch of doors.
and the theater space is cool because it's got like four. It had four fireplaces in it, right?
Yes. So it was originally, a pretty much a dirt floor in there.
Mhm.
There are four fireplaces in the what I refer to as the basement. Chris refers to as the first floor, because people don't like to think that they're dining in the basement. Um,
well,
uh,
there is a basement though. There is
well,
a
there is a newly dug out basement that was dug out in 1992. Uh,
before me. That was BC.
yes, BC. Yeah, it was BC.
Yeah, see, yeah.
Um, but yeah, so there are four fireplaces. Those fireplaces date back to the original build of the tavern, and they have, if you have deep fireplaces, that is usually signifying cooking. Um,
Mhm.
they are not deep. And so for a while we are like, oh, maybe it's like dry storage. There really wasn't anything dry storage. You wouldn't necessarily warmed it up. So what
Right.
was that space for? This was more than likely, and we don't know this for sure, but we it's more than likely, that enslaved would have stayed in this room.
Right.
When they purchased it, they dug it out, and then they actually hand dug the last couple of feet so that they could add lighting, for the stage. But it is a really cool, theater. It was the very
Mhm.
first dinner and a show, um, anywhere ever. This was the very first place in America that if you wanted to go and grab dinner and then a play afterwards, you would go to the Hanover Tavern.
That's
Hey
cool.
Ronnie, how's it going? Hi Octavia. I investigated the tavern and surrounding buildings with Steve and crew. Pretty intense. Can't deny it. I have my name called in the spirit box, and I don't exactly have a common name. So long hair, very recently pulled in the courthouse. Yeah, we get a lot of that stuff. So we're gonna talk about that here shortly. But
So if anybody, so if I'm at the tavern and if anybody wants to come in and see stuff, I do have a little Easter egg that I like to show.
he does.
So when,
Favorite.
yeah, it is. Like I said, when Barksdale came down, they came down with their two big ass dogs. I think they were like
They're
great.
Great Danes.
Yeah, and so when they poured the concrete, I guess the dog, like, so the dogs would just roam around, like
Mhm.
literally to the point that like they would just eat food off of the tables, like the guests' foods off the tables. And I guess when they poured the concrete, they didn't keep them out of the theater. So when you walk down there, you can see the Great Dane's paw prints
Mhm.
throughout the
Yeah.
floor.
I think you showed me that too, Steve, last time I was there.
Probably, but it's neat. It's Chris's favorite little Easter
Like,
egg for the
like
building.
a little Easter egg.
The other thing that we do is we host a lot of community events, and so we have antique shows. We have, something that I'll have on the next slide to share. But one of the biggest things that we do every year is our, Autumn Fest, and it is a fall festival, and it's basically kind of our way of giving back to the community. It's one day, and Chris loves it. I love it. Look at that! Look at that grin. Hi Cindy, how are you? And I think I said hi to Ronnie, but hi Ronnie. Um, but it is a great day. I have a lot of fun with it because, we get the smokers out. We smoke some brisket and tons of meat, man. For beer drinkers and wine drinkers, is that a thing? I don't know.
I
Um,
think they're called lushes. I don't know.
Lushes and, for all of you lushes out there, no. But we have a bunch of local
Brunswick
breweries that
stew.
come in. Brunswick stew, some
Pie.
amazing pies by Al. God, the food is so good. And then we have live music. We've got a musician. We do tours, like the whole nine yards, and it's a lot of fun. Um, but that's in autumn, or in the autumn. So I guess what is that? September, I believe.
Yeah,
End of
it's
September every year.
Okay.
Um,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
it's
And
like
then
29th, something like that,
yeah.
somewhere around there.
And then last but not least, we have a full restaurant and bar in the tavern. And a
Yep.
lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people think that we're just a historical site or we just have a theater. But we do have a amazing restaurant. And one of the cooks is on the show tonight, Chris. But we have. So I stole this picture. This isn't our normal fare. This is actually from or one of our themed dinners. We do themed dinners for our holidays and all that sort of stuff. Thank you, Ronnie. And this one particularly is from St. Patty's Day.
Okay.
So we went all out and made some St. Patty's Day dishes. But we have an amazing new head chef that came in last year or so. And it's been great. It has been night and day with the food and
You know, the
um,
food that
Brandon,
I had was amazing. The she crab soup I couldn't say enough about.
I call it they them crab soup because technically you can't harvest female crabs. I don't know where she crab came from. Why
I
is
don't
it
know either.
she crab soup? You can't. It's he crab soup, but then sometimes they get some she crabs in there, so you need to encompass everybody. You don't want to say he and she crab soup, so I just say they them crab soup. It's
Okay.
of
everybody has
all
scripts.
Well,
everybody's crabs.
no matter what you call it, it was amazing. So
Thank you. I'll tell Tony, our restaurant manager, that they them crab soup was great.
Yeah, and I mean, we just released the new menu too. So like, you're gonna have to come back down and try it. It's
we're definitely a road trip. We have to grab Jamie and we're gonna have to come down just for the food
yep.
Yeah.
We
and
start.
then investigate.
So yes, we are multi facility. We also do weddings. We have a huge following for weddings. A lot of folks get married there. We have during like the holidays. My God, is it booked up with like
Holiday
corporate
party.
parties and all that sort of stuff. And then we have businesses come and rent out the facility all the time because we have this massive coach house out back that kind of just is a standalone operation almost. All right, next slide. And then we're going to talk about some of the paranormal stuff. Oh, wait, did I not include it? Hold on.
You did. There's
All
another
up.
this one.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So these slides are out of order. That's okay.
So
Um,
while you do that, I'm gonna go AFK for a minute.
okay. You go. Good luck. Good luck. So in January every year, this is our third annual, I think it was. We host the Hanover Tavern Paracon. It's a huge fundraising conference, and 100% of the proceeds goes directly to the tavern. I know you were there, Chad. I know
Hmm.
Ronnie was there, and a bunch of folks in chat. Stacy was there, but all of the proceeds go directly to the tavern. Everybody that you see in all these pictures, from everybody from Patty Negri, Rob Thompson, all these folks. Patty flew in all the way from Hollywood for this, and she donated all that, all of her time, her trip, everything was donated to support this. Everybody that is a speaker, um, they don't get anything. All of the money goes directly to the tavern. So it is one of my favorite events of the year, minus the bash. That is always my favorite. Um,
And it's a multi-night event. I came down on
yes.
Friday for a couple things. 'Cause I thought we were gonna have an investigation at my home at Boobies, and I went back for that. It got canceled because of the weather. So I
Yep.
wish I had stayed, but the Friday night event was great.
Thank you.
You had
Yeah.
the ghost stories from Richmond were
Yep,
telling
Haunts of
stories.
Richmond shared some ghost stories, and then we headed upstairs, and in that top right photo, I think you're probably in there somewhere, Chad.
Mhm.
But Ron and Lourdes held their first ever Staticom session in the tavern. Um, the first tavern Staticom session. It wasn't
Mhm.
the very first Staticom session, but the very first time that we've held it in the tavern was that evening, and so that was really a treat. Like I
Mhm.
love them, and I love that, and it was so cool. And so we did that Friday night. We kind of do like a VIP night Friday night, and then Saturday we kick off. We have a bunch of vendors that are all through the historic rooms of the tavern, all throughout the coach house, which is that bottom right picture. And then we use the stage for all of our speakers. We do a gallery reading, and so that's where you see Rob Thompson and Patty Negri. In previous years, it's been the Connor sisters, or the Sisterhood of Magic and Wonders. We get
Mhm.
Misty and Ashley Connor and Pat O'Keefe, and then we do panels. We have speakers. We had Brandon Masulo. We had the Berries on there. Um, um, Brandon Schumacher. I mean, tons and tons of really cool folks.
Yeah.
And they share, some of their experiences and all that sort of stuff. And what we always try to aim to do is a lot of paracons kind of bring in some really cool folks, but they always kind of like focus on like very specific topics. Yeah, you need to come and join us next year for sure. Um, what we try to do is we try to get a scale and bring in somebody from all different sides and different kind of paths of the paranormal. And so we had folks like Dave and Brandon that came in and brought a little bit more of the scientific slash skeptical side perspective
Mhm.
of the paranormal. We had gather readings, and that's obviously very rooted in the belief of the paranormal. Um, who do you have to know to be on the panel? I don't know. You just I don't know. Maybe just don't be scared God, what is the dude's name? Now I'm drawing the blank all of a sudden. Um,
Listen, to get on the panel, it's not who you know, it's who you. Yeah.
you need to be not scared of Michael Jackson, Ronnie. Um, I don't know. Talk to me. Hit me up. Have your people talk to my people.
Slide into the DMs.
Ronnie says I'm out. Have your people talk to my people. So send me a message.
Mhm.
Um, but we have a lot of fun. It is a
Mhm.
really I scared him at St. Albans
Mm.
because he came around a corner and I went, "Woo-hoo!" And that man jumped, and it was
Uh,
hilarious. It
so,
was the
well,
most
but
amazing
then
thing.
on top of all those activities, you then have an investigation that encompasses the whole complex, correct?
Yes, and we hit up all the buildings: the clerk of courts building, the jail, the tavern, the courthouse, and we also investigate the library. And the library is a fairly new building, but it's actually built right on and amidst what is referred to as the Tillman Burial Ground, which, if you remember, 20, 30 minutes ago, the Tillmans owned and operated the tavern for a period of time. So
Mhm.
we have all of this that we do for this event. It's definitely a smaller kind of a niche, I guess. Paracon. It's not a big one. Like I know Pam and Steve do like 3 days, and I don't know how the hell they do that. This is Friday night and then Saturday night, and we have a lot of fun. It gets busy. We get a lot of people in there, but it's not so massive that you can miss folks. You come here, and the idea is a because we try to encompass all different aspects of the paranormal, from the science, the metaphysical, to the historical, and everything in between. And this year, actually, this last year, we hosted a panel on dark tourism and brought in different ghost tour companies and individuals to kind of share their perspective, which was a cooler thing that I've never seen done before.
Mhm.
And so, the idea is no drama. We have fun. Everybody has a right to view the paranormal however they want. There's space in this field for all of us. And so the idea is to allow that and allow that to grow and to learn from each other. I feel like the only way to grow is through sharing ideas and learning from others. So that's the whole
Mhm.
point of it, is to do fundraising for historical property. The money goes to historical preservation, restoration of the building, because it's very expensive,
Mhm.
um, as well as the community outreach that we do, the educational programming, and then from a paranormal aspect, to just get people together and get to share ideas and opinions and learn. So
Cool.
it's a lot of fun. But let's talk. I know we only got a few more minutes, so maybe we'll go a tiny bit over. If
We can go as long as you guys,
um, Chris is like, God damn it. Um, but let's talk a little bit about the paranormal side of things.
It's
So,
almost past my bedtime, Steve.
Chris, it is not. And Chris, I'm gonna let you talk about the lady in insert color here.
So everybody needs a
Every paranormal location needs one.
single freaking location needs to have a lady in insert color of dress here.
Mm-hmm.
Lady in white, lady in red, lady in black, lady in blue. Fun that is a song, but Our Lady in Black.
Lady in
So, Our Lady in Black. She first arrived on the scene um, in what 2010, 12, 2012. It was definitely before Chris. It was definitely BC.
So well, we the Lady in Black was actually the very first. Like it was the
Yeah,
reason that Transcend
that's
came
what
to the
pulled
tavern.
that's what poured TP to the tavern. Yeah. So the Lady in Black story goes where um they were hosting a tavern tea or one of the events, whatever it was, and in the room that you're seeing right now, the parlor, uh, there was a younger girl sitting on the steps to the breezeway, and her mother was a few steps behind her, and her mom turns around and says, "Hey, can you go get more tea or whatever it is for the guests?" And she goes, "Okay, sure." And she gets up and turns around and she sees a woman in a full morning gown, not morning as in like AM, but morning as in loss of a loved one, full black morning gown. And the lady in black turned, smiled at her, turned back around, and walked through the doors that are facing the opposite direction of this picture and just disappeared. And that alone was enough to finally get Transcend into the tavern where we have unfortunately been stuck. Not unfortunately, but we have been able to investigate and research even further. And recently, so for the longest time, the Lady in Black was just that. It was just one story that we were chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing.
Well, there
In
was multiple though too. Like
Yeah, like it was. I mean, it was like yeah, see in there. It was so with her, like I said, we were chasing her and chasing her, but never could actually like ever see her or ever got any kind of EVPs, anything like that. And it hasn't been till fairly recent, the past couple years,
it
that
was like post COVID, wasn't it?
yeah, it was post COVID that we've started to actually like I don't want to say build a bond, but it feels like it's almost becoming more prevalent. Multiple employees with the tavern have now seen her. I've actually seen her. I was walking and I literally saw the bottom of a black dress. Tony, the GM, she was walking on the veranda and saw the same thing. She saw the swish of a dress. Um,
Cool.
Guests and everything have heard the swishing of the dresses, um, and just dealing with that kind of entity. Um, so the lady in black, there's a couple theories on who she might be. Like it says on here, was maybe a mother of one of the victims for the diphtheria outbreak. Another one could have been that she is the wife of one of the tavern owners, and she's wearing a morning dress because of um, their child passing away inside the home. Because obviously at that time the family would hold the funerals and the viewings inside the home, inside the parlor area, and
Right.
so that's one of the other theories on the Lady in Black.
Right.
And that's where like the term funeral parlor comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is parlor. The parlor was the place in the home that you would have all of your family events, and so funerals were no different, and that's where you would hold your wakes. And a wake at that point in time, today you go to a wake and it's an hour long. You see, and you console loved ones of the family, and then you go home. A wake at that point could have spanned 2-3 days,
Right.
and a wake was literally somebody sitting there with the deceased, a wake, making sure that the deceased is actually dead. because at this point in time, it was not very, but it was a common occurrence that um, because they didn't have the medical knowledge and know how to properly declare somebody as passed, um, that you could be buried alive.
Hmm.
And so that's where you have some of the view holes into caskets in the ground, or you have bells, all those sorts of things, right?
Where
Yep.
the
Um,
Saved by the Bell came from.
and so um, you know you have all of this, and you put this into the home section of the building, and then now we're seeing this woman in a black morning gown making her way around predominantly in the home portion of the building. And and so we take that, and we take a couple of steps back and say, well, when do you see folks wearing mourning gowns and practicing the act of mourning in this sense, right? Because today we will mourn the loss of loved ones, right? and
Right.
and we go to a funeral and we typically dress in all black, et cetera, et cetera. But in a very specific time period, the Victorian era, um folks would be wearing these mourning gowns, and you can see it's a hoop skirt. And so she had a hoop skirt on almost every time folks have seen her. And so first off, that tells us, okay, probably Victorian era. Second of all, there were kind of rules and regulations around mourning, around the act of mourning,
Hmm.
most predominantly for women, right? Men had some rules around, when they could start dating, what was the length of time that they had to wear black, but women had it by far the longest. And
Hmm.
so depending on the significance of that loved one, if it was a brother or a sister or a parent or a significant other or a sibling, um, or their own kids, that could change dramatically, right? It could be anywhere from a couple months to a year or plus. um, and so we kind of took all that all into consideration, when we started digging to understand who is Our Lady in Black. Why do we see this woman in a black Victoria gown in this portion of the building? And keep in mind that while the experience that our executive director's wife and daughter had were the reason that we ultimately were invited to come to investigate the tavern, there were sightings. Oh, thank you, Octavia. Appreciate it. There were sightings of the Lady in Black going back decades. And I've had folks come and tell me that when they were there in the 70s and even before then, that they witnessed a woman in a black morning gown. They watched her, either walk on the front porch, which is the veranda now, or through some of the historic rooms. Um, and so, you know, we start digging and we're like, oh my gosh, like people have been having this experience for a very long time of seeing this woman. So we know it's not something new. We know it's not something recent. This is something that has been here for quite some time. So we're already thinking, okay, Victorian era, right?
Right.
Um, we also realize that during the Civil War, the tavern owners at the time, the Chisholm family, and let me be very clear, when I put out names, I'm not saying this is 100% this individual. I'm not saying
Right.
that this spirit that we were interacting with is this person. Um, Best guesses, sure. Confirmations, never, never, ever, ever, because I've never had anybody walk out of a wall and be like, "Hi, Steve, I'm so and so."
You haven't
You
had
know,
that happen yet?
I haven't, Chad. I know everybody does, but I haven't had it. Um,
I'm waiting too, so don't worry.
but I always like to preface that because I don't want to upset anybody or
Right.
anybody's heritage, because we don't know. We have a best
Right.
guess. We don't know if that's true or not. But we do know that during the Victorian era, the Chisholm family owned and operated the tavern. Um, Actually, right before they actually purchased the tavern a couple of months prior to the Civil War breaking out. So Amazilla and Cleavers Chisholm. Can you say that again? Also known as Anne and Clive, purchased the tavern right before the Civil War broke out. And during that time, they had uh, two sons go to war. Two daughters obviously stayed home.
Right.
Both sons came back from war, and both daughters passed away. Um, both of them passed away from the outbreaks of diphtheria, typhoid, smallpox, all the sort of fun things. And there is mention in actually a diary that Margaret White, the refugee that we talked about earlier, that makes reference to the fact that the daughters passed away from these outbreaks. And so one of the daughters did have two younger children that Amaziah and Clive ended up taking in and, you know, taking care of.
Mhm.
But that brings us to a huge, to me, piece of the puzzle is who was this, right? Who's going to be mourning the loss of a loved one at a tavern of all places? This is like a hotel,
Right.
like that'd be like me walking around the True, like crying and sobbing over somebody, right? But you know, she's predominantly seen in the home portion, and it fits the timeline. It fits the fact that there's a loss of a loved one. She's actively in mourning at this period,
Mhm.
and there we have it. Like I feel like a few of the puzzle pieces fit. Again, doesn't necessarily mean 100%. Yes, this is it. We could be completely, off course here. However, um, it all kind of fits, right? It
Mhm.
all makes sense, especially like Octavia said, when you learn about some of the practices and you fit that into the context of what's going on in that time period, we might have it. And so, we've interacted with the Lady in Black, and like Chris said, it took us almost a decade, if not a little bit longer. We've been investigating the building for over a decade, and it was just recently that we finally interacted with whom we believe to be this individual. Why did
Wow.
it take so long? No idea. Absolutely no idea. But for whatever reason, just recently we've finally been able to come in contact or communicate with what we believe to be, our Lady in Black.
Maybe
Uh,
it takes a decade for us to become ghosts in their
we
realm.
in
Mhm.
their realm. Now we are the ghosts. Um, that's my history and hauntings presentation, Chris. Uh, but but yeah, I mean, so that was that was the biggest piece.
Wow.
And so I know we're obviously over an hour, but let's dive into the video that I sent you.
Sure.
And then afterwards we can talk a little bit about it, and then talk about we'll talk about the video as it plays, but then
Mhm.
we can talk about some of the other experiences that we've had there, and in the complex as a whole. Because
Right.
when we host public investigations at the tavern, it's not just the tavern. We'll investigate the courthouse, the jail,
Right.
and the clerk of courts building, and the library, and all those sorts of fun things.
Right.
So we investigate a bunch of buildings. It's not just one.
Right.
But this video that we're going to show, that Chad's going to pull up here, is
Well,
never been.
I'm gonna pull it up, Chris, because it's 6 or Stevenson, it's 6 minutes, so we'll let it play and you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
talk.
pull it up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let her rip. Um,
You're gonna see Steve come in with a white napkin on a stick and go, "Ooh,
Ooh.
I'm a
uh,
ghost."
this is the very first time this video has been played on social media anywhere. And so this room here is our Tillman dining room. It is the original dining room of the home portion of the tavern. This has been redone in this period. This was a couple years ago, and this was turned into an escape room that we had set up at the time. This was the very first time uh, since the Victorian era that it has actually been decorated in Victorian decor. So we have never had it, any room in the building decorated to the Victorian era time period, um, since this is it. And so what's really interesting is, to kind of go along with that time period, we set up a bunch of these candles, and you can see them, the candlesticks, right? And you can see how they're turning on and lighting up in the room. Um, to turn those on, you have to lift them from their base, and twist them. And that's it. You have to actually lift them from the base, twist the bottom of it, and then set it back down. Uh, it it did not have any like remote or anything like that. Um, we, we're very specific because this was an escape room, and batteries are expensive. Let's face it. we had a very specific set of instructions on when you set up the escape room. You go in, you turn on the lights, you turn on the candles, etc. At the end, you basically reverse everything that you did. You turn off the lights, turn off the candles, put all the all the stuff back, lock up the room, etc., etc.
Hmm.
Um, this, as you can see, was midday, so 14:27, 2:27 in the afternoon. This is not nighttime. It is daytime. I had just set it to IR 24/7 for some reason because I was dumb. Um,
Because you're edgy
but
like nighttime.
yeah, because I'm edgy like that. Um, but and this is just one view. One of the things that I love about this uh piece of footage is we have four camera angles of this. um and you will see all throughout it that uh as this clip goes on, and this is a different angle, the candles turn on in a counterclockwise rotation in the room. So you can see that that I think that's the second candle that turns on right there, in between the two chairs in the bottom left of the screen. And then you'll see the one on the table on the right hand side turn on. And then it'll go over to the secretary's desk, one that's on the mantle. There's one that's near the bed on the far left, two that are on that wash basin on the left hand side of the screen. And then there's one more that's off the far left. Um, on this particular day, it was early in the afternoon. There was nobody in the building except for two folks. You can see those two candles are now on, that one on the right hand side, then the one on the back. You'll see one on the mantle turn on. Um, Dave was there, and one of our team members, who was the education director there at the time, Kendrick, was there. And I got a notification on the Wise cameras that there was motion in the room. Motion that was detected in the escape room. So I was like, "Well, we're closed today, like to the public." And I'm like, "I wonder what they're doing." So I flipped it open, and I saw that one of the candles was turned on. And so I sent Kendrick a text message that, "Hey man, um, I think somebody left one of the candles on. Can you walk downstairs and make sure you turn them off?" Um, and so he's like, "Yeah, sure." So he takes like 3 or 4 minutes, finishes up what he's doing, walks downstairs, grabs the keys, unlocks the room, and when he unlocks the room, he realizes that every single candle in the room is turned on.
It's
Uh,
amazing.
and so that's when we went back and we're like started digging. And I'm like, oh my god, like I got to get all of the camera footage of this. We have never had this happen since. This is the only time, and we had that escape room set up for what, a year plus.
Yeah.
That is the only time that we had these candles turn on. We've never had it since. Didn't have it prior because this wasn't like the first week. This was like a couple of months into this escape room.
And
Um,
if I remember correctly, Steve, this is also the room that the Civil War exhibit was set up when you came in
this is
and and everything was crashing.
yes. This is
Interesting.
the same room that very early on when I talked about the experience that I had with the sounds of everything crashing in here. Same room.
So the footsteps that we're hearing, is that
Those are
you?
living people. Those
Okay.
are those are folks. Yes.
Okay.
And the
And I know
one,
it's traffic sounds also from
Yeah, you can
301.
hear the cars from 301. And I think Tony was there too, because she has an office space that's directly above.
Okay.
I think it's above this room. Um, like yeah, you can hear Dave in the background talking. So like they're just hanging out. I mean, keep in
perfect.
mind this room is locked. There's nobody that's able to get into this room because it is locked. We have like a small lock on the outside, so that nobody just wanders
Yeah.
in and sees the escape room. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah. Did you notice there's also some sort of and it could be something from outside, but above the fireplace next to the picture, there's been a light anomaly there a couple times.
it's probably the like that.
Yeah.
That's just a reflection of like the car windshields
Okay.
heading down the road. Um, Yeah, that's exactly what I thought of. The same thing, Octavia. It's like somebody is like walking around the room, lighting candles, right? Like, uh, you know, my thought is, if I walked into that room, what is the direction that I would take to light the candles? I would probably walk in and light the one that's immediately to my left, which is what happens. And then I
Mhm.
would make my way to the right. I would walk around to the windows because there's going to be, the most amount of light over there, obviously,
Right.
still coming in. You would presume that you'd light your candles before it got dark. So you're going to go to the area of the room that has the most light. You're going to
Mhm.
walk, light those up, and make your way around. And so I agree. I think that's exactly what's happening. Is maybe this is something that is intelligent slash residual. Like, okay, well, there's candles. It's getting to be whatever time. Let's go light them up.
Mhm.
Um, but it was wild. I mean, that is to me one of my favorite pieces of footage. I don't want to say it's necessarily evidence, because evidence of what, right? We know something
Right.
is happening, and I kind of, you know, I don't know, I don't know what's happening. It's to me, it's one of the craziest pieces of footage that I have, that we have recorded, and it was all because we had cameras set up for an escape room.
Uh-huh.
Um, just utilized to make sure that when folks are doing the escape room, we can help them out when they need hints.
Right.
That was like the whole intent of the camera setup.
Well, but it is definitely really cool. And thanks for sharing it here first. Like,
Yeah, yeah. We've shared it amongst ourselves over the
uh-huh.
years, and obviously we didn't want to post it out anywhere while the escape room was going on, and then um, you know by that time kind of was a little forgotten,
Uh-huh.
and we talk about it, but you know I don't know. It's just something that we hadn't thrown out into the wild for quite some time. But um, I mean, to me, it's a really wild and interesting piece,
Mhm.
um, because there's nobody in there. The room's locked. It's midday. A lot of people like to think that, to investigate, it's got to be nighttime. That's
Right.
when the
What?
ghosts come out. Like, I had somebody try to school me on I was mansplained that 3 a.m. is the time for spirits, and that is when ghosts come out.
Mhm.
No other time. It's only at 3 a.m. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Sure, whatever you say. Um,
I'll be honest, under the idea of ghost or dead people, if when I die and you want to come investigate me, do not come at 3 a.m. I will not be awake. I will be asleep.
Exactly.
Dead Chris will be dead sleeping.
I will throw
He'll
that
be
is
dead
even
asleep.
thrown at you because I'm dead ass asleep.
Uh-huh.
He'll
Yeah.
be dead asleep.
Yeah. And
But
again, if you think about, the whole routine thing, people are asleep at 3 like the house that I grew up in, we had a repetitive thing. It was like 10:20 every night. You could hear somebody walk up the steps because that was their routine. Like you
exactly.
said, 3 a.m. people are asleep. It's
Most of us are asleep.
Yep.
you know, unless we're up doing an investigation somewhere, but that's a whole different story. But
But it definitely begs the question of you know well, I guess the answer really is, do you have to investigate at night? Of course not.
no,
It's just the easiest time to investigate. Sure, 100%.
less distractions, less interactions with
Yeah, less
traffic and things
people.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But
But
you
it's
don't you don't need to at 3 a.m. And in fact, that was at literally just before 3 p.m. So
mhm.
literally like 12 hours before.
Mhm.
Where's your proof now?
If I had a mic, I'd drop it. Um, but that is just one of many experiences that we've had at the tavern over
Mhm.
the years. Um, you
Well, I'm
know,
gonna pull up this. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is what Lady Activia had.
yes, folks have it's 3 a.m. somewhere. Um, we've have just about damn near everything going on at the tavern.
Mhm.
We've seen full body apparitions. Granted, it is not all that common, but we have seen them. We have seen full body apparitions there. It's not, like Sweet Springs, where like activity is literally nonstop. Sometimes you go into the tavern, there's not a whole lot going on. Typically, we'll walk away with something, but it could be couple EVPs to full blown apparition and hearing footsteps above you. It
Mhm.
just really depends on what's going on in that night and everything. And I think a huge piece is your personality, and how you approach the investigation.
Right.
Um,
I will say the one thing that like sucks but doesn't suck is when you get all the way to the top floor, you start investigating and you start hearing people talking like below you, or like you hear like loud bangs, like people are walking around and stuff, and then you have to go like sweep the entire tavern to make sure there's nobody in there, nobody's breaking in. Sweep it, and then you turn around, you get back upstairs. 5-10 minutes goes by.
there's another. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Down there and do it all over again. And
Uh-huh.
after like the third or fourth time, you're like, we're just staying down here. I
I'm
don't
tired of this, Grandpa.
My knees can't do that. They click too much.
But no, I mean we've had that, like, where we've literally, Chris and I and a few others, because for the team it's like a second home to us.
Right.
There's a few places that we consider a second home, and the tavern is definitely one of them. And we all, we're all ambassadors of the historic sites that we investigate and we work with, and the tavern is no difference. And so, um, most of us know the history very well, and know what's going on, know the location like the back of our hands. And so we will take that on to, okay, well, if somebody is legitimately in the building, we got to make sure that there is nobody here.
Right.
And so we've heard some absolutely loud, like, things dropping, doors slamming shut. We'll hear footsteps, we'll hear people talking, and it's like, all right, gotta go and check the
Mhm.
building. So we go, we check all the doors, we check the bathrooms, make sure nobody like hid in there or anything like that. Um, and cross off everything off the list that it could be before we say, okay, something's occurring.
Yeah.
Um,
That's I
but
mean,
it's a lot of ground to
yeah,
walk
it is
and
not
make
a
sure
small space.
make sure nobody's like hiding in there. So it takes a while to sweep the building, and then you
Mhm.
get back upstairs to the third floor, and then you hear it again, and you're like, oh my god, here we go again.
Then you try to do an EVP and you're fat and winded, so you're like, "Is anyone up there with us?"
It's
Wow.
10 p.m.
Well, it's definitely great. I mean, the video is amazing. Definitely want to suggest to people to get out and visit. And do you have a lot of public investigation? Like, what's your
We do. So we host 3 to 4 public investigations a year, and we
okay?
try to change it up. So, like, we will partner with other historic locations when we do the tavern sometimes. So, like, our next one coming up is April 27th, I believe, and that is a sold out event. It has actually had to be postponed because the evening that we were gonna host it, I think we got like a nasty storm,
Yeah, it was a
Mm,
and
yeah.
we actually were going to be investigating the Cold Harbor battlefield, which is
Right.
a very popular place to check out, and a lot of people have a lot of desire to investigate it. We actually have access to investigate Cold Harbor battlefield, and so, awesome, dude. Cold Harbor is so cool. We've investigated Cold Harbor once before, and the last time we were out there was a couple years back. Um, and it was in January. It was cold as hell. But that was the date. They were like, "Hey, if you want to do it, this is the date." And we're like, "This is gonna suck, but yes."
Right.
And so we went out there. It was January, and we investigated. And we actually audibly heard a little girl uh, talking out there. We heard footsteps in the woods, cannon fire. I mean, dude, it was wild. I know. See, a lot of people do that. A lot of people sneak out there, man.
Not
Uh,
that we're promoting that.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, you could, if NPS catches you these days, it's game over.
Yeah.
Uh, but there is some activity, some serious activity out there. So it is a really cool spot to investigate. Lot of history, just because it hosts two, not one, but two Civil War battles. Yeah, we heard the footsteps. I don't think we heard any horses. I'm not sure. I know we got animal sounds, but our team member Rhonda always remembers the animal sounds versus everything else. She's like, "Remember that goat that we heard on the EVP?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Well, we got a goat." And I'm like, "Wait, where did we get you?" Um,
the woods.
the woods.
Mhm.
She
Got
be
her
the witch of the woods
be the witch of the wood.
from Lake Moomaw. Um, exactly. I am too, man. I used to do some serious hood ratting, but I'm at this point where I'm like I don't want to spend a night in jail.
I will say, like, if you get out to Cold Harbor before like we get started and everything, less than maybe 100 yards is like a super old cemetery to just kind of check out. And it's like a lot of really cool like unique headstones, and like there's like a old building like right on it. I don't know exactly what it
Well,
was.
that's the Garthright house, and
No, 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 no.
oh, you're
That's
thinking of something different.
yeah. So like
Okay,
instead of being right there on Cold Harbor, like in the battle, like where the battlefield is, go across the street, and then like 100 yards down the road, there's a cemetery that's like got
okay.
some super old like headstones and stuff.
Because we're investigating right along the strip that the Garthright house
Hmm.
is, and there is a small cemetery right there. But the Garthright house is occupied, and the small cemetery that's right there on that property, it's kind of like right in its front yard. That is pretty much off limits at this point, including the Garthright house. We don't have access to the Garthright house because somebody's living in it. So you know,
Imagine like you living like right there,
that'd be cool as hell.
private home.
Mhm.
That would be cool. And basically the folks that live there are docents. Like I think they're park rangers. Um, but I think that would be absolutely phenomenal.
Start banging on the door. Let me in.
And then
What
they
are you
arrest you.
seeing?
Literally get arrested by the park ranger. Uh, but yeah, so we partner with historic locations. So
That's
sometimes we
cool.
will do North Anna Battlefield, and then we'll come down and investigate the tavern. April 27th. We're investigating Cold Harbor Battlefield, and then we make our way to the tavern. Sometimes we just do the tavern and the buildings around there. So it all really depends, but we investigate about 4 times a year.
Okay.
And we'll have an investigation. I can't remember the dates right now because we kind of had to change them up slightly because the one that we are supposed to have in March got rained out for April.
Right. Right.
So then that kind of pushed back everything else. So we'll have those out there soon.
Love
But
to
we will have. Go ahead.
like where I'd love to like work out another like Paul Green church and tavern collab.
Might be
That'd
able
be
to.
nice.
Mm.
Might be able to do something. And then we'll partner with other places like Scotchtown every so often, Hannah
Mhm.
Activity Center. Just tons of really cool places. We did the Beaver Dam Depot one year, and that was really neat. Um,
God, that was a long night.
it was a very long night.
A long because that was the Beaver Dam Depot, North Anna Battlefield, and then you wrapped up at the tavern.
Oh wow.
Yes. It
Yeah.
was a lot of walking, but it was really cool. It was really cool. And what's really neat is those locations, they're not just random spots. It's not like, all right, well, we're gonna head over here to Joe's Smoke Shack, and then we're gonna go over here to the music store, and then we're gonna go to the tavern. Like all of these places are tied in some form or fashion. Like when we partner with Scotchtown, it's tied by the Patrick Henry family because Patrick and Sarah lived at Scotchtown. They also lived at the tavern under the Sheltons. When we investigate North Anna or the Beaver Dam Depot, and that's tied because it's all part of the same train, path, right?
Uh-huh.
There was the Hanover Depot that was literally right there. And then, obviously North Anna, Cold Harbor Battlefields, the Hanover Tavern, we had the Battle of Hanover Courthouse that was right there. And so a lot of that property was kind of used as field hospital.
Right.
So all of it is tied together. It's not like we're just picking random places and then just smushing them together for an evening. There is historical significance that ties these locations
Right.
together, and that's why we do that. Is not only do we share the wealth because we get to support two locations in one night, but we also get to kind of, I don't know, just it's a
Teach a
different
little history.
approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get to you know experience something and then see if you experience something very similar at another location that is historically tied.
Right.
Um, so it's really cool. I love
It
to
is.
do it. It does make for long evenings,
Mhm.
and so we don't do it too often, but it's
Right.
fun.
Now,
It's
I
fun.
think I know the answer to this, but do you guys do any private investigations at the Hanover Tavern?
Yeah,
Oh, you
we
do?
do
Okay.
allow private investigations.
Okay.
It is, and don't quote me on this because I can't remember off the top of my head entirely, but I'm pretty sure it's 325 for the first 5 people, and then it's $50 per person after that, up to 20 people maximum. Um,
Okay.
Basically, just we don't want anybody hosting an event there. I've seen a
Right.
number of faux pas where people rented out a location. Let's say they rent it out for $200 and then they sell 20 tickets for that at $100 pop. Um,
Right.
and people fall for that, and all the money goes to whomever rented it out. We're a nonprofit, and so the whole idea is to raise money for the location to benefit the location.
Right.
um and so yeah, you can privately rent it out to investigate. You do get the access to investigate the majority of the property. The biggest places you don't get to investigate are the kitchen, obviously,
Right.
for health
See,
code and all that sort of stuff. The offices that are up on the third floor, because that's where we do business.
Right.
But the majority, the rest of it, the smokehouse, the coach house, the um, tavern itself, majority of it you get to investigate.
Cool.
A lot of people do wonder if you can investigate the jail and the courthouse. Unfortunately, that's not part of the private investigation,
Right.
because when we investigate those locations publicly, we actually have to go to the court and get the judge to approve that every time, and so that's a little bit of a process. And we also don't want to be running that down, every time. So,
Right.
um,
And
we
it makes it
save that.
special when you do an event. That, yeah.
I just love that. Like it comes across the judge's desk. And he's like, "Oh, it's those weirdos again. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, whatever.
golly.
Yeah, let those freaks do whatever they want."
Get this off my table.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it is just the tavern.
Okay.
But we do allow investigations. So if you guys do want to, please feel free to reach out to me, and I can get that set up and coordinated for you. Sometimes I suck at communication. I promise it's not because I hate you; it's because I am ridiculously busy, and a lot going on. But we do allow it. And I know Middletown is booked recently. They're going to be investigating coming up. Christine, who is on our team, now actually at the Paracon, we raffled off. We do a silent auction,
Hmm.
and one of the auction items was a private investigation of the tavern, which of course she won. And so
And we were immediately like, "Hey, you want to join the team?"
you want to join the team? And so so she's booking her private investigation coming up here.
Cool.
But yeah, we do allow it for sure. For sure.
Okay. Well, that's great because I thought the answer was no. So you surprised me,
Yep.
and that's great.
Now it can be a pain in the ass, not gonna lie,
Hmm.
because weddings are our bread and butter.
Right.
That is what keeps the building afloat, really. And so if folks book a wedding, um, that obviously takes precedence,
Right.
because that is, thousands of dollars versus 300. And so
Right.
that money is desperately needed, because if anybody watching, um if any of you guys have ever seen the checkbook for a historic location, you know that it is a sinking massive black hole
Hmm.
of money. I mean, we spent a lot of money last year just on repairs for the simplest of things, that, because it's a historic building, everything is exorbitant in fees. Whether it's finding the right person, because not everybody can service whatever it is that you have now because it's old, um, to getting the right parts because they're old and they might need to be custom made,
Hmm.
to having things shipped in from other countries because they don't have them here anymore. I mean, it is
Well,
ridiculous the lengths that you have to go for some of this
and
stuff.
even getting the approvals, the permits, the like
That all is very
that's a whole
expensive.
process in itself, and
Yeah.
Everything is specialized.
time consuming, and yeah, and you have
So
to get this permit, and that takes 3 months, and then you need this one on top of that one, which, yeah, it's just
I mean, even the most simplest things. We're looking at um, getting a new walkway in front of the tavern right now, with like lighted up signs and everything, so that people can
hmm
cross the street a little bit safer.
hmm
We started working on that last year, and the estimated time to even start breaking ground for that is like 2025, 2026.
oh, jeez,
Um, and it's just like, going through all of the loopholes that you have to go through is it's
Mhm.
nutty.
Yep.
And the roughest part about it is a lot of people think that if you put your historic location on, a national registry of historic locations, which the tavern is, um, that you get some sort of like funding. You don't.
Nope.
What you do get is a massive f load of red tape.
Yep.
And so e- even as something as simple as painting a room, you cannot do without approval from God
Yep.
knows how many people.
Yep.
Um, and
And then it
so
has to be the specific colors that, it's
yes, you have to
there's
submit the colors. You have to submit the company that's going to be painting, how
mhm.
they're going to be painting. I mean, everything A to Z, everything that you can think of and more.
Yep.
You have to submit, get approval, and you have to pay people extra money to do these sorts of things.
Mhm.
So it is not cheap. The other thing about it is, um, a lot of people think that historic locations do get some sort of federal, state, local government funding. The answer to that is a absolute no. No, no,
Yep.
no. Doesn't happen. And if it does happen, it's very rare.
Right.
Um, we
And if you
as the
do, it's because
tavern,
you've gotten grants that take forever to write, and,
yes. And that's
just
that's it. The
mhm.
tavern, we get no federal, state, local funding. All of the funding that we get is through writing grants, and folks coming out to visit the tavern to join us for events,
Mhm.
whether that be a tea, coming out to dine, coming to a paranormal investigation, going to Autumn Fest, or we have an antique show that's going to be coming up that's really really fun. Where I spend a lot of money that my wife hates because then I buy a bunch of old shit that goes into the house.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it's through folks interacting and supporting the tavern. It is not something that you get funding from any
Right.
government body. Um, those that do get it are far and few between and absolutely lucky.
Mhm.
Um, but it's through people in the community, and so that's why
Yep.
we try to do things to give back and to say thank you to the community and all that sort of stuff. But it's rough. It's a
Yep.
lot, man. It is a lot, and so that's why things like weddings take a lot of precedence, and that's why it can be sometimes difficult to schedule a private investigation because I got to look at the calendar and be like, okay, all right, okay, you want April 17th. Well, let's take a look. Oh, there's a wedding that day,
Right.
uh, and a lot of times those weddings, go until 11, 12 at night. I mean, I've been there. Chris and I've been there until 2 a.m. One particular wedding. Um, and so that doesn't even include cleanup. like
Right.
That's
like
just
cleanup is a whole other thing.
Mhm. So,
So
well,
it's
cool.
it's a lot to work with, but
Yeah.
it's fun
So
and it's a wonderful location. So
so definitely wanna get people out to support the tavern, though. It's the best thing you can do to help. So,
yeah, or I mean, and if you can't make it to the tavern, go and visit your local historic location.
true.
Go and fall in love with the historic location that's near you, and support them. I mean, it doesn't have to be a financial donation to support them either, by the way. Like the I don't have a whole lot of money, and so I donate my time.
Mhm.
Chris donates his time. Most of my team members donate their time, because volunteers for a lot of these locations are far and few between as well.
Right.
Not only is the funding, but just having people there to run events and just staff can
Well,
be
and
difficult.
maintenance, and just, some of the maintenance can be done by volunteers,
Yeah, I mean,
especially if you're doing, like, a cleanup day, or, like, some
we
of the
do.
ports,
Yep. You can do
just
cleanup days. I help out with the website and the tech.
mhm.
Chris helps out with some of the tech. I mean, there's so
and
many
you
different
build
things
that
that you could
bond.
do.
Yeah, and you start building that bond with the individuals and the people that work there, and you never know. Like you could get in there, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, have you ever heard that this place is haunted?" Because da 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 da. And be like, "Well, funny fact. If you want to find out, let's check it
Uh,
out."
right.
Like,
You're able to also build
I
those.
might surprise you, but I'm weird as shit. Um,
Uh,
but no, I mean that's how you do it. That's how a lot of people
yep,
do it. It's not,
yep,
it's just building that relationship and putting effort and time into a location. A lot of people, a lot of teams will just reach out and say, well, can I get in here? And that's it. But like,
Right.
sometimes you gotta work on it and work for it,
Right.
and also realize that it is, if they ask you to pay to investigate the location, realize that that is not because they don't want you to be there. It is because they're covering whatever costs they need to. Maybe that's because they need to have a staff member with you at all times, right?
Mhm.
Maybe it's the fact that just keeping the lights on and keeping it a place that the insurance company will allow people to enter costs a lot of damn money.
Yeah.
And so it's not that, if everything was free, sure, come in for free. Um, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of comments where locations you should be able to investigate for free, but there is a reason that they're charging. It's it's,
Right.
it's so expensive.
We could do a whole episode on paranormal tourism.
Oh
Just
God, we could.
so. So, well, we're at over an hour and a half now.
But we're not at 2 hours.
We're not at 2
Chris.
hours. I did put together links to your different stuff.
Oh, thank you. Look at this.
So
Fancy.
So check those things out. Facebook, your website, Instagram. Your team has stuff.
We do.
What's on your SoundCloud? I didn't check them
There are
out. I just
some seriously old clips on there.
We have a SoundCloud.
We do from the year of the flood,
Oh
bro.
my God, can I become the SoundCloud rapper for Transcend?
Sure, you can, 100%. But yeah, we've got some clips on there from like the year of the flood.
Okay.
But yeah, we've got a whole slew of things. And then if you want to find Chris and I on Eerie Encounters, it's Eerie Encounters on Facebook, Eerie Encounters on YouTube. And then if you want to find our finders, I said ghost fingers.
The goat
Our
fingers.
our ghost finders work. You can find Chris and I on the Ghost Finders on Facebook, as well as the ghostfinders.com. We're on Paraflix and the Spirit Channel, which is on Roku devices, as well as the Spirit Channel website now. There's actually a
Cool.
website for it.
Anything coming up with those on new episodes? I've been keeping an eye out.
I don't know when we're gonna have an episode. I don't know if we've announced it. Where did we announce? Did we
For what?
announce
For goat
the
fingers?
yeah the episode when we drove, like the recent one that we filmed? Was there an announcement? I don't know.
I don't know.
Well,
Look out for that
we'll
one.
look out for it.
Listen,
Listen,
know.
I'm still trying to get our editor to have enough time to edit an Eerie Encounter episode.
Yeah,
But
well,
he's
God
too
bless
busy
him.
doing-
He's
He's
so
too busy doing an hour and 42-minute podcasts.
But no, there'll be another episode
Okay.
of the Ghost Finders dropping, I think, fairly soon.
Cool.
And that'll be from and forgive me, Rob, the Hinsdale house. So
Oh, okay.
I'm super excited for that because that was really fun. Chris and I drove up there, and we actually get to stay at Wildwood Sanatorium.
I remember seeing some live from there.
Yeah.
And we have an episode of Eerie Encounters coming probably 2 years from now. That of Wildwood.
Okay, cool.
And we'll have one of kind of like some of the behind the scenes from the Hinsdale house.
Cool.
But yeah, so that's the next episode, and I know we're slated for filming coming up here for another episode. So pretty exciting thing.
Very cool. So I have a funny story with the name Ghost Finders. My sons, when they were in high school, which is like 10 years ago now, my dad's house was haunted, so they were spending a weekend there. So they but it was before you guys had the show. They made an episode of Ghost Finders, or at least an intro.
Oh my God, that's awesome!
I found it the other day and it was like cracking me up, and I'm like, wow, I got to be careful of copyright here.
I would like to watch this. I think you should send me a link.
I'll track it down again. But yeah, my son was just getting into video editing and put something together. So
I wonder if Rob will let us use that as an intro for one of the episodes.
Well, maybe for what we talked about in the gym the other day, Steve.
That'd be perfect.
He said, I love it.
So you'll have to see it first. But it was when I put the two together, it was hilarious in my head. So
that's awesome. Good night, Octavia. Thank you for hanging out with us.
So just to want to run through a couple of things that my team's doing, or not my team, but the team I'm on's doing. We've got a public investigation this week at the brewery. 1 ticket left. Then we're at Red Mill campground, not campground, historic Red Mill Museum. Then we're back at Booby's Brewery for a couple of things. We've, good mix of events coming up.
I want to
Jamie
get
and I
up there so
Tons of
badly.
movies.
All the boobies. I want to get up there. Like that whole basement thing.
the catacombs.
Yes, the catacombs look so cool.
We've had some interesting stuff down there.
Chris, we're gonna have to make a road trip.
Oh, I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at the place. This place looks sick.
It's cool as hell. It is so neat.
I want to go find ghosted boobies.
You want to find boobies ghosts?
I want to find boobies ghost. I want to find.
I think you should get Rob to do an episode there.
Ghost boobies.
The goat fingers go to boobies.
Ghost fingers investigated. Ghost boobies.
So yeah, there's the actual restaurant, and then across the hall, the street is an old malt baron house, which was like the malt master's house. Last week, and they do some dinner theater and boobies as well, and they use the street across the house to prep and like dressing rooms. And they had a hat fly across the room the one night.
So they own the building across too, then.
Yeah, yep.
I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, the Malt Baron house they own, and it's more of an Airbnb. They have an Airbnb there, and then they have a boutique hotel in the actual brewery hotel complex.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely some great things there to check out. So
that'd be cool.
So yeah. Then we've got on the next week we've got the Haunted Mansion from Jamie. The 23rd, we're actually planning on doing an episode about Booby's Brewery, and in 50 episodes, we haven't done one about our home turf, so maybe it's time.
It would be pretty cool for y'all to do like a live episode at Booby's.
We've been kicking that around.
Should do that.
We'll see what happens. And then Akamakian is another local place up here, so
that's cool.
So that's what we've got going on. Here's our social medias. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming on. It's been a great discussion. It makes me want to get down to the tavern again.
Come to Ashland, drive on the tracks.
You have to do that when you're there, apparently.
You got to do it, man. It's when in Rome, when in Ashland.
Yeah, when in Ashland, drive on the tracks.
Drive on the tracks.
Loves it.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Oh yeah, anytime. Chris, I definitely gotta get down to meet you. I don't think I ran into you when I was down in January, but would love to get together.
You probably saw me, but I do a lot of running around. I bounce from one building to the other. So
for the Paracon, Chris is I gopher and Chris gophers.
Okay.
Yeah, if someone catches me and they're like, "Hey, I need to find Steve," then I go, "Okay, cool. I have to find Steve." and usually that is also a task at hand. Usually I tell that person, "You're gonna have to hang tight because it's gonna be a minute."
Yeah, stay here, don't move. I will find him and bring him to you.
At some point, he will walk by.
Cool. Well, again, thank you for coming on. Thank everybody else who came on and hung out with us for the last hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. I'm going to roll the
hours, Chris.
I mean, we can keep going if you want, but
No, it's all right.
I told Chris it was going to be 2 hours.
So, all right, I'm going to roll the end credits. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you guys in a few minutes.